19th, 2023. Adequate notice has been given and in accordance with the Sunshine Laws. Notice was published on January 5th, 2023 in the Star Ledger and one of the official newspapers of the Township of Springfield for the year 2023 and posted in the Annex Building on January 6, 2023. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Jane, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Stephen Hochstein?
Here.
Mr. Stephen Furstenbaum?
Here.
Mr. Rajay A. Sahada?
Here.
Mr. Michael Weckstein?
Here.
Ms. Marla Naparano? Ms. Marissa Horowitz? Ms. Anika Dotson? Acting Chair Mark Cunningham?
Here.
And Chairwoman Jody Cohen. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay. Looking for approval of the August 2023 minutes to the meeting. Do I have an approval for those minutes?
Oh, you want here?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any objections?
Abstain.
Abstentions?
Thank you. Abstain.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Okay. The approval of the, now we're going to go through the approval of the resolution of the prior applications of the August meetings. Do I have an approval for application 2023-17 for Sandra Laguerra, lot coverage and a pool area variance? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Dotson? Ms. Naparano?
Yes.
Mr. Hopstein?
Yes.
Mr. Furstenbaum?
Yes.
And Chair Cunningham?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, approval of the resolution for application 2023-19, Mark Kraus for a rear and side yard variance for a shed. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Furstenbaum?
Yes.
Ms. Naparano?
Yes.
Mr. Hochstein?
Yes.
Ms. Dotson? And Chair Cunningham?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, and approval for the resolution of application 2023-10, 266 Morris Avenue, LLC, preliminary and final site plan, use variance, and mixed-use building. Do I have a motion to approve that resolution?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Mr. Hochstein?
Yes.
Ms. Naparano?
Yes.
Mr. Furstenbaum?
No.
Ms. Dotson? And Chairman Cunningham, sorry.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay. We'll move on to our first application. Application 2023, Melvin Gutierrez and Leonella Trinidad for a lot coverage variance, bulk variance, and retaining wall garage. Can you please step up? Sure. We have one recusal for this application? We have one recusal.
Chairman Cunningham, for the record, Ms. Dotson needs to recuse.
Okay,
She has a relationship with the planner.
okay, great. Okay, can you turn your microphone?
There we go. Normally, people don't have a problem hearing me anyway. I didn't realize it wasn't on. Okay, so,
Let's swear you in, right, Bruce?
You an attorney?
yes.
Okay.
Good? Okay.
So we are here because Mr. Gutierrez and Ms. Trinidad Portes own property located at 75 Mika Street in Springfield. That's block 2903, lot 20. There is a residential structure erected on that lot. The applicants propose the installation of a dry well as well as an attendant retaining wall and PVC drainage piping to handle stormwater runoff and the replacement of grass lining the residence and in the backyard with permeable turf to assist in that same stormwater runoff. Applicants would also like to remove an existing wall and walkway to facilitate that work. We need 2 variances tonight, and you will hear testimony regarding that. One is maximum lot coverage per Appendix A to the land use regulations, the schedule of zoning limitations. In the S60 zone where the property is located, 36% maximum lot coverage is allowed, and 42.27% is existing, but 41.7%, a small reduction is proposed. However, we do still need a variance. Also, off-street parking under section 35-23.2A of the code. In the S60 zone, 1 garage space is required. However, the house is constructed such that a car cannot fit inside the garage, so we do need a variance for that. And again, we'll demonstrate through testimony and argument that these variances are appropriate. We have with us today an engineer, Renato Bernardes, and a planner, Stephen Martini, who will give testimony to that effect. If there are no questions, I'd like to call my first witness.
Okay.
Thanks. Renato? There it is.
Could you please stand? Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
I do.
Please state your full name, spell your last name, and give us your business address.
Sure. My name is Renato, R-E-N-A-T-O. Last name is Bernardes, B-E-R-N-A-R-D-E-S. I work for Bernardes Engineering and Design Consultants. I own that company, and we are located in Perth Amboy, New Jersey.
Thank you.
Is your license current and?
My license is current, yes. Yes, I have had my New Jersey professional license since 2016, my professional engineering license since 2011.
Okay, great. Everybody okay with accepting him as a professional witness? Okay.
Great. You saved me a minute. Thank you. So you have been accepted as an expert witness. However, just for the board's edification, can you give them the benefit of a little bit of your educational background?
Sure. I graduated from Rutgers in 2006 with a Bachelor of Science degree. From there, I began working for Aurora Associates PCs located in Lawrenceville, New Jersey, where we mostly worked New Jersey DOT and Turnpike projects. From there, after there, I worked for Abington Engineering at the same time.
Slow down.
Sir. Mostly DOT. What kind of civil engineering?
What was the name?
The name of what? The company?
Yeah.
Aurora and Associates. And after that, I worked for Abington Engineering, who at the time were the engineers for Freehold and Pemberton Borough.
When you're saying your names, you need to speak a little slower for the reporter. Can you say that name again? Abington Engineering?
Abington Engineering. My apologies. And then at the beginning of 2020, I was able to start my own company, which I'm currently with, and is Bernardes Engineering and Design Consultants.
Thank you. Did you review any expert reports before tonight?
Yes, we received an email from Michael Disco, which is the board's engineer, that is dated July 18th, 2023, with 7 comments that we addressed and revised accordingly.
Did you receive any reports in response to that?
No, we have not.
Thank you. Should have asked this earlier. I apologize. You were hired by Mr. Gutierrez and Ms. Portes for this project, correct?
That is correct.
And what were you hired to do?
The client wished to build a retaining wall, as well as remove some areas of imperviousness, which included some walkways in the area and in the property. And then also based on feedback from the board prior, we also added a dry well for stormwater retention on the site.
Okay, I am showing you what I'm going to mark for identification as A1. And while you're looking at this, I'm going to hand a few copies out to the board. While I'm doing that, can you explain what this is to the board? Oh, thanks, Jen.
This is a plot plan of the property based on a survey that was provided to us. On the plot plan, if you notice, there's a dotted region area that encloses the building and goes around the property. That is the area of turf, of,
Hold up 1 second so everybody has a copy. Thank you.
sure thing.
Yeah, we're just sticking with what this is right now.
Sure, this is just a plot plan.
Thank you.
Based on 75 Mika Street.
And did you prepare this in connection with your work on this project?
I did prepare this.
And your seal is on it, correct?
It is my seal.
Thank you. All right, let's wait a second, and then we can move on.
Okay, we all have copies.
Thanks. Okay. So why don't you start by describing the lot and location from an engineering perspective?
The site is located at 75 Mika Street. It is Lot 20, Block 2903. The lot is rectangular shaped, and it is 3,939 square feet.
And what about the frontage? What frontages does it have?
The frontage is extremely narrow at 39 feet, and it is very, very undersized for the zone that it is in, which is the S60 zone, a single-family residential.
What are the, just for the board's edification, what are the lot size and frontage requirements in the S60 zone?
The minimum lot size in the S60 zone is 7,500 square feet,
And what about the frontage?
and the minimum lot width is 60 feet.
Okay, and so the lot itself was existing in this fashion, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Okay. What are the applicants intending to do on this property?
The applicants are intending to remove the concrete slab let me see it. You mind if I refer to the survey?
Oh, yeah, you can use your big board, absolutely.
Counsel, if I could, just so the record is clear.
Yes,
There was a drawing submitted with the application.
yes.
Is this any different than that?
This is the same drawing that was submitted with the amended application, Mr. Bergen.
Okay, just so we know we only have.
I appreciate that. I apologize for not clarifying sooner. Thank you.
Can that be marked as A1 then?
This is A1, yes, it's the same drawing.
Yeah, but it's not marked. It's marked here, but not.
Well, do you want me to mark the big one as A1? Normally, I would mark the small one and give this to Jen for her file, but whatever you want me to do.
Well, first of all, we now have a second page up there. Was that submitted with the application?
This was submitted with the application. This is the existing survey.
Let's stick with the plot plan, please.
I just want to show them the areas of impervious that we removed.
Okay.
Mr. Furstenbaum, in fact, it didn't need to be marked at all because it was submitted with the application.
That's what it is?
So it's in the record. Yes, thank
Yeah,
you.
this is, sorry, just for identification so that it's easier for reference, but, happy to mark whatever you want me to mark, of course. I totally understand, I appreciate it. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Bernardes.
We removed this concrete walkway area in front of the porch, as well as the one along the side of the home, as well as this existing retaining wall, which is this L structure in the backyard. And then, for our proposed work, we added a retaining wall along the perimeter of the back property line, as well as a drywall here. And again, this is the area of turf that we would like to create.
Okay, thank you. Now, I mentioned earlier that the applicant is also seeking a garage variance. Do you have any comments on that? The applicant is seeking a garage variance. Did you
do
deal
not.
with that at all?
No, I did not address the garage variances. That's not part of the scope of my plan.
Sorry, do you need a second? Is there?
Trying to figure out whether the second page that your witness pointed to was in fact identical to what was submitted with the application.
The first page we have.
Okay, great. This is the second
second
page.
I don't see it. Unless it's different.
It's the existing survey. That should have been part of it, but it's also represented in the plot plan, but it's just overlaid over the
No
proposed.
big deal, it's just marking.
Yeah, we just have to mark it if it's not in there. Let's mark it. That way you don't have to keep looking.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is going to be A2. This is the survey.
That's there. That's good. The second page.
Page is turned back, thank you.
Yes.
That's the last page.
Yes.
That page, is that page?
Okay, so this is A2. Thanks for catching that.
Just so the record's clear, A1 was marked, and that is the, is it titled site plan?
The plot plan, yes.
A2 is the survey.
Correct.
A1 was in fact submitted with the application, but we already marked it, so we'll
Yeah.
leave that. So A2 is a new document.
Yes, that is right. Since it was not with the application, let's get this verified. Mr. Bernardes, you prepared that survey?
The survey was subcontracted out
Okay.
by ENLP.
But you reviewed it?
I did review it.
Okay, thank you. All right, so, let me just find my spot here, I apologize. You reviewed the Springfield zoning code in preparation for tonight?
I did review it.
Okay, so, given that, why don't you return to the big plot plan, you can go to the board if you want, and go through the zoning table, each entry, noting any issues you see with compliance, with respect to compliance with the code.
As we mentioned earlier, this zone is the S60 zone, which is single-family residential. The minimum lot size is 7,500, and the existing lot size is 3,939 square feet, or 3,939.
And that is an existing non-conforming condition, correct?
That is an existing non-conforming condition, and it's pretty undersized. The minimum lot width is 60 feet, with our actual lot width being at 39 feet. Minimum lot depth is 30 feet, with our existing lot depth at 30.71. Our front yard setback is at 30 feet, and we are at 29.20. Our minimum rear yard setback is 30 feet.
I apologize, I think you may have,
No, I'm sorry. The minimum front yard setback is 30 feet, and it is at 30.71. The minimum rear yard setback is 30 feet, and it is at 29.20. And then the minimum both side yard setback is at 14 feet, and we're at 15.77. Minimum one side yard setback is 8 feet, and we are at 7.27 feet.
so there are a number of existing non-conforming conditions, correct?
Correct, and this is due to the narrow size of the lot, and it's being undersized for the zone.
And the applicant is not making any changes to any of those previous
Correct,
conditions?
these are all existing conditions that are part of the building.
Okay, please, let's move on to the next few things.
The minimum building coverage is 25%, and we are currently at 25.30%.
I think that's maximum building coverage
Maximum
for the
building
record?
coverage, correct. And the maximum lot coverage is at 36%, and we are 42.27% for existing, and then with our removal, and as well as with our proposed, you want me to slow down? I will start again. So our maximum lot coverage is at 36%. The existing lot coverage prior to our improvements was at 42.27%. Our proposed lot coverage will be reduced to 41.70%, even with adding the retaining wall, just due from removing the concrete areas as well as the existing retaining wall.
Okay, so, again, there is a reduction in maximum lot coverage, or rather lot coverage, but we still need a variance because we're still over 36%, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and can you walk the board through, you mentioned it briefly, but the exact changes that are being made to the impervious coverage?
The exact changes we'll be removing a concrete walkway over here and a concrete walkway over here and the existing retaining wall. And then what we're adding in is the proposed retaining wall, which is going to bring up that number a little bit more.
Okay, and do you know what the exact difference in lot coverage is from existing to proposed condition? What's the change?
1 second, I can check my notes. It is a reduction in 0.57%.
And what about in square footage?
That is 22 square feet.
Thank you, okay. Let's turn to the turf that you mentioned earlier. Is there an exhibit you have with you that will help the board understand why the turf might be beneficial to what the applicants want to do here?
We were provided with a manufacturer pamphlet that describes the turf. It is pervious, water can get through it.
So I'm going to mark that for ID as A3. Now again, just describe what this is while I hand this out. Don't get into details, please, just describe what it actually is.
It is the company name is ProFlow, the product name is ProGreen. It is a synthetic turf system.
Okay, why don't you explain for the board how the turf that's being proposed here will assist in the drainage and the beautification of the site?
Drainage turf grafts roots help to loosen and separate the soil, which improves drainage.
Slow down, slow down.
Drainage turf grass roots help to loosen and aerate the soil, which improves drainage and reduce runoff. And for beautification, turf grass is visually appealing. Addition to any landscape, it can help to improve property values and reduce crime rates.
Okay, and so because the turf is fully permeable, it will allow stormwater to easily get into the dry well,
That's
correct?
correct. And then there'll also be a 3.5-inch base of gravel along with sand infill that will also help with drainage.
Okay, and then the dry well, there's also some PVC piping, is that correct?
The dry well basically is taking all the stormwater runoff from the roof and directing it to the dry well in the backyard.
Okay, and under this proposed plan, do you think it would alleviate any possible stormwater concerns on the property?
Yes,
Thank you. Do you have any other comments with respect to the site plan?
I do not.
Okay, then just to wrap up here, in your opinion as a professional engineer, is this plan sound and appropriate from an engineering perspective, and will it accomplish the goals that the clients are setting out for?
Yes, the proposed plot plan is sound and appropriate from an engineering perspective. It includes a retaining wall to address the slope of the property, a dry well to collect and manage stormwater runoff, and permeable turf to improve drainage. The plan also meets the applicable engineering standards.
Thank you. No further questions.
Why turf and not grass?
This is a preference of my client.
Does this turf require fill?
It requires some sand infill and a gravel base.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Mike, do you have any questions on this?
I do have a couple questions. Mr. Bernardis, if you could just show me where the existing retaining wall is on Exhibit A1. A1.
It is not. It was removed for visibility.
Are you speaking to the,
Take the mic.
Okay, is it on A2 then?
It is on A2. The existing retaining wall is right here, basically in the middle.
Can you, for the record, just describe what you're indicating to?
Sure. I have the existing retaining wall is in the rear of the property, in the middle of their backyard.
And the synthetic turf, I heard the sand, no rubber infill, correct?
Correct. No rubber infill.
I see that the limits of the synthetic turf go all the way to the front of the house, is that correct? So it's beyond the limits of the,
It goes up to basically the front of the building.
I heard the 3.5-inch base. How is the water going to be collected and get to the dry well?
Currently, it is not routed to the dry well.
No, but how will it be was the question.
It will not be. It's basically, This entire area was not being collected for the drywall to begin with, but the stormwater pipes from the gutters will be directed through these dotted lines. So here's a gutter here, a gutter here, a gutter at each corner, and these dotted lines are routed to the drywall from there.
That I understand,
If you required it to, we could also add an additional pipe in that gravel base area and route that to the drywall as well.
yeah. No, any rainfall is gonna go through the turf, go through the 3.5 inches of stone and hit the prevailing existing soil that's there.
Correct, and this is no different than what the existing condition is.
So, as long as there's, could you describe what the slope is along the sides of the house? Is it to the backyard or to the street?
The slopes basically go from a easterly direction down to a westerly direction in that way.
So would, both sides then would drain generally to the rear anyway?
Correct.
Okay, and then there's stone from essentially both sides of the house and the entire rear yard under the turf, and then you've got the detail of your dry well, which is about 4 feet deep, correct?
Yes, it is 3.25 feet.
Okay. And the roof drains at the corners of the house, is there an overflow mechanism? In other words, is there a,
No, currently there isn't, but we can add a detail that would show an overflow for the roof gutters themselves.
just to guard against in case the pit fills up? They did provide a geotechnical with a 1/4 inch per hour percolation. It's okay, not great, but over time, obviously, the pit will drain down. But just in case, we're now sending the whole roof area and most of the synthetic turf area to the one pit, although it's sized adequately. We just want to make sure that it doesn't fill up and then cause a problem.
I would also like to add that we're also adding 2 feet of K4 replacement fill below the drywall for additional storage as well.
Can you, for the record, just, what kind of replacement fill?
K4 is the percolation rate. It just basically means a high, okay.
There's a note that so you have a perforated pipe behind the wall, you're draining that into the seepage, bit of dry well, correct?
Correct.
And then the detail shows one weep hole perhaps, or the detail note refers to one weep hole through the wall which doesn't get to the dry well. Could you identify where that one weep hole is? There's more than one weep hole.
We're actually adding a perimeter drain around the retaining wall about 1 foot off that's also be routed to the dry well.
Yes, that I understand. The detail, though, makes reference to a weep hole, and it says one required set at 4 inches above grade.
Yes, so the weep hole can actually be relocated to the front or inside the property line, so it can drain back into their own property towards the dry well.
Well, the purpose of the weep hole is to drain any water pressure behind the wall and release it. But you have the perforated pipe which is going to the dry well. But you're showing a weep hole through the wall, so where is that discharge point? Just trying to prevent a neighbor from getting a concentration of water.
My understanding, or when we were doing the design, was that we were going to add a perimeter pipe along the front face of the wall that would collect anything from those weep holes, and that would direct it to the dry wells.
Could you define what the front face of the wall is?
Sure, the inside of the backyard area.
Inside, okay.
Yes.
Well, again, your plan shows the 4-foot perforated pipe connect to dry well, but it also shows the weep hole, which is unconnected to the perforated pipe. I'm just trying to identify where that discharge point is again.
Again, like I said, this area where the side of the weep hole is going to be on the property side, and that weep hole there's going to be a pipe collection that will be attached to all those weep holes, and then that will be routed to the dry well right here. So any discharge from those areas will go to the dry well.
Okay.
I'm confused.
We're talking two different things here.
So,
Okay.
On your modular block retaining wall detail.
Yes.
Center of your,
Yes, this one right here. You're talking about this weep hole, correct?
right, there's a note that says 4-inch perforated pipe connect to dry well. And weep holes, plural, parentheses, one required, set at 4 inches above grade. I'm asking only specifically about that weep hole, the one weep hole.
The weep hole will be directed towards the property. So any discharge from that weep hole will go towards the backyard.
Right, but where is the weep hole? Like, where
Oh.
specifically on the wall?
We haven't located it on this plan. We can locate it, though.
But the weep hole is under the grading on the fill side of the wall, and then it is daylighted to the lower side of the wall to allow the flow of water from the high side or the backfill side. So that's where water is going to concentrate and be discharged. So I see weep holes, plural, one required. I heard reference to weep holes all the way around. I'm just trying to identify so that we know where the water is going to discharge. If we don't need the weep hole, that's fine, and we can eliminate that. And then all the water is basically relying upon the perforated pipe.
Do we need that weep hole, Mr. Bernardus?
No, we do not.
So,
We can remove it if necessary.
okay.
That protects the neighbors from a direct discharge point.
Okay, so
Or
let's-
concentration of drainage.
Thanks, Mike. Let's make sure to make a note that we're going to remove that.
Help me understand something. Why does it say one required if one really isn't required? Or is that like a variance or is that just an engineering issue?
Normally, this is just a standard typical detail, so that normally the weep holes are there, but in this case, the contractor had suggested that we added a perimeter drain around there, so then that's going to be collecting the water and adding it to the drywall.
And the perimeter drain is outside of the retaining wall, like on the
It's on the inside of the property.
Got it, okay. And there's no structural issue that will be raised because of a lack of a weep hole and the water pressure that will
No,
accumulate?
because,
Okay.
because that drain will take care of that issue.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and just to clarify again, there's no separate variance if there isn't that extra weep hole.
Correct, this is not a variance.
Thanks.
Can I ask one more question? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Now I'm looking at the detail, it shows that there's gravel on the low side.
Are you referring to the retaining wall?
The block retaining wall detail.
That is a gravel base, correct? Below it.
If I'm looking at your site plan, it looks like the block wall is right on the property line. Does that mean you're putting gravel on your neighbor's property?
No, it will be, the retaining wall is actually offset inside the property, the property line, so there should be about maybe a foot to half a foot there.
So it's inside a foot around the site?
Yes.
And there is slope of the perforated pipe into the dry well, correct?
Correct,
Bottom of the wall. Correct?
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, real quick, did you ask us for one other change that I might have missed? I apologize. Other than the weep hole, I think I might have heard something else that Renato said he would look at.
The drain's coming out.
So, since the entire roof area is now going into this dry well in the rear yard, whereas I presume previously, certainly the front of the house drained to the street.
Right.
Which is, it's taking the water off the street, that could be a good thing. But it also could tend to overwhelm the system. You got the entire roof area, and you've got the perforated pipe behind the wall, and all of the synthetic turf, water will drain immediately through it, through the stone base, and according to, typically, I don't see it on this plan, but typically, synthetic turf grasses below the stone base or incorporated within stone base either have a flat drain or other perforated drains at spacing to drain the bottom of the stone base somewhere. I don't know, maybe Mr. Bernardus could clarify whether all of that's incorporated into it and that's being directed to the dry well?
Are you referring to any emergency overflows if there is?
Under the synthetic turf, in the 3.5-inch thick base,
Correct.
is there a perforated pipe or flat drain draining? No, okay.
No.
So the stone base will follow the slope, but certainly over the seepage pit, I think it's got a good likelihood that that water's going to drain. So there's a lot of water going to the dry well, which is good if it's sustained on the property. So the point of the overflow, at least on the gutters, is easy to do. At the bottom of the downspout, you put in the emergency slotted drain overflow, that if the roof drains back up from the system, they can spill out, and certainly the ones from the front would then drain to the street where they have historically gone. So that's the overflow clarification.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Do you have any more questions?
I'm good.
Any other questions from the board before I?
Any questions? Is anybody else going to go?
We have one other witness, but I don't know if you
Okay.
want to theoretically take questions from the public before I.
Anybody from the public here want to question the professional? No?
Okay, thanks. You can return to your seat, Mr. Bordonis. Thank you.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state your full name, spell your last name, give us your business address.
Stephen Martini, M-A-R-T-I-N-I. My business address is 105 Grove Street, Montclair, New Jersey.
Thank you.
Can you please give us your professional credentials and a little bit about yourself?
Oh, sure. I have just about a decade of professional planning experience in New York and New Jersey. I'm a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey since 2016. I also am certified through the American Institute of Certified Planners, also in 2016. I have a bachelor's and a master's degree, both in planning from Rutgers University. And I could give you last three boards I testified for. As a professional planner, City of Plainfield, Township of Bloomfield, and Village of South Orange Township. I also appeared on behalf of Hoboken's Planning Board as their board planner last week.
Okay, great. And your current license is current and in good standing?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. Okay, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Martini, I think you probably mentioned this, but just in case, just for further confirmation for the board, you are certified by the American Institute of Certified Planners, correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thanks. Okay, were you hired by the applicants for some work on this application?
Yes, I was.
And what was that?
Provide to review from a planning perspective, and I guess what I'm doing here today, providing professional planning testimony in support of the application.
Thanks. And what did you review in connection with your preparation for tonight?
I reviewed Springfield's land use ordinance. I reviewed the 2017 and 2005 master plan reexamination reports, as well as the 1997 master plan. I also reviewed the proposed plot plan and the application documents, and I also visited the site more than once and conducted a photo survey.
Did you review any board expert reports before tonight?
I reviewed comments via email from the board engineer, Mr. Disco, that's dated July 18th of this year.
And again, as I spoke about, you heard me speak about with Mr. Barnares, your understanding is that we did respond to those comments and filed an amended application.
From what I saw, the response from Mr. Bernardez, yes.
Thank you. Okay. Why don't you describe the project site from a planning perspective?
Sure. This is the southern side of Mika Street between Stiles Street to the west and South Springfield Avenue to the east. The project site consists of one lot. This is block 2903, lot 20, with an area of approximately 3,939 square feet. Existing on the site is a two-story single-family residential dwelling that has a garage on the first level, which is the lowest point of the dwelling. It's important to note that the dwelling does not have a basement or a cellar. In terms of zoning, this is the S60 single-family residential zone. We're requesting two variances as part of this application. As Mr. Bernardez mentioned, one is for maximum lot coverage in the S60 zone. 36% is the maximum permitted, whereas we are proposing 41.7%. This is, as Mr. Bernardez mentioned, the existing lot coverage is 42.27%, and the proposed calculation is actually a decrease of 0.57%, which, as he equated in terms of square feet, is a reduction of 22 square feet. And this is due to two walkways being removed on the site. And then the second variance, as per section 3523-2A, parking is required as per our SIS requirements, provided that at least one space shall be in the garage, whereas the existing attached garage cannot can accommodate enough space to park a vehicle. As Mr. Renata mentioned, there's also several pre-existing non-conforming conditions that will remain as part of the proposed application. That's minimum lot size. I don't know if I should go into the same details, but.
I think the board's heard it. You can just run through them real
Yeah.
fast.
Minimum lot size, again, 7,500 square feet is the minimum required, whereas 3,939 square feet is existing will remain. Minimum lot width, 60 feet is the minimum required, whereas 39 feet will be existing and remain. Minimum rear yard, 30 is the minimum, 30 feet is the minimum required, whereas the existing dwelling is about 29.2 feet for the rear yard setback, and that will remain. Minimum side yard setback on one side, 8 feet is the minimum, and 7.27 feet is existing and will remain along the northwestern side of the dwelling. And this is a consequence of the already existing narrow lot. And lastly, maximum building coverage, 25% is the maximum allowed in the S60 zone, whereas 25.3 it will be existing and remain. So from a planning perspective, the proposed improvements to this site will be beneficial not only to the applicant, but to the neighboring properties as well in this portion of the S60 zone and Mika Street with the improved drainage on the site. There are physical hardships present. This is an undersized lot for the zone in terms of lot width and lot area required, and I'll go into further detail in that momentarily.
To that end, do you have an exhibit with you that could help the board understand where your testimony is going to be on this point?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so I am pre-marking what I'm going to call a 4, and I will hand it out to the board. While I'm doing that, can you describe what this is for the board and tell them how many pages it is?
Yes, it's an 8-page exhibit, and it will go through we'll go through a couple of maps that give you context of where the site is, the zoning, existing conditions from one of the site visits that I took photos from, and a couple other maps that will show you existing conditions of other properties within this portion of the S60 district.
Okay, let's just give a second for the board secretary to finish handing that out, and then we'll get into it.
Sure.
Okay, so you prepared this, correct?
Me and I supervised colleagues in my office preparing it.
Okay, but it's
Yeah, my office
it's your
prepared.
work product?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, so why don't you go through what
sure.
this is for the board?
Okay, so I'm going to start with page 2. As I mentioned, this site is located along the southern side of Mika Street. It has a lot area of approximately 3,939 square feet. I'm going to move on to page 3. This is a screenshot of the township zoning map. And as you can see, the project site is within S60 single-family residential zone. I will move on to page 4. So to give a little bit more context of the lot area and the proposed lot coverage variance, this is a map that shows the existing lot area of the site and surrounding lots. So the S60, as I mentioned, requires a lot area of 7,500 square feet, and as you can see, the lot is well below what is required. It's actually a little over half of what's required. And there's a pattern that extends along the majority of the properties along this side of Mika Street. And you could actually see the majority of lots on this portion of the street, on this southern side, are all the same size. I'm going to move on to page 5. So similar to the lot area map that I just presented, this map shows lot width, and the required lot width of the S60 zone is 60 feet. And the site has an existing lot width of 39 feet. So again, the trend of deficient lot widths is present for most of the lots on this side of Mika Street. And it appears that these lot widths and areas of 40 feet and less than 40 feet and less than 4,000 square feet respectively was the intention of the subdivision when it was initially proposed or developed at that time. I'm going to move on to page 6. This is a view of the site from Mika Street. I'll note that I made 2 site visits to the site, conducted on Friday, September 1st, between 11 and 11:30 a.m., and Tuesday, September 12th, I'm sorry, also between 11 and 11:30 a.m., which is a week ago, so I was there very recently. And again, to note, the existing garage is actually part of the dwelling structure. I will move on to page 7. This is 73 Mika Street. This is right to the, I guess you would say, east of the site. Note the conditions I mentioned earlier, that many of the lots on this side of the street are undersized in terms of lot area and lot width. This lot in particular has the same dimensions, 39 feet in width and 3,939 square feet in area. And also note that the garage is part of the structure of this dwelling as well. And lastly, page 8. This is 69 Mika Street. This property also has similar conditions and the same dimensions, 39 feet in width, 3,939 square feet in area, and also a similar building garage arrangement with the garage on the first level of the building.
So, to get these variances, the applicant has to prove that they meet the requirements of the municipal land use law, is that correct?
That's correct.
Can you explain to the board what you see from that perspective for the C variances?
Sure. So I would say that both the C1 and C2 context for variances are applicable for both the variances requested. I'll start with the C1 context, which per the municipal land use law is a hardship due to exceptional narrowness, shallowness, or shape of the specific property by reason of exceptional topographic conditions or physical features uniquely affecting a specific property, or by reason of extraordinary exceptional situation uniquely affecting a specific property, or the structures lawfully existing thereon. So with this application, the undersized lot, which again is close to half of what's required, a little bit over half of what's required in an S60 zone, that significantly limits the lot coverage that's permissible by the 36% that's allowed on a lot in the S60 district. So that would equate to 1,418 square feet.
That's
So-
what would be allowed, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
So comparably, if this lot were at what was required, 7,500 square feet, the maximum lot coverage in terms of area would be maximum allowed would be 2,700 square feet. So to that end, our application is attempting to be as close to compliant as possible, and it actually is proposing a little over 1,000 square feet under the maximum that's allowed of a compliant lot in this zone. So it's also important to note that the existing lot coverage of the site, as I mentioned, is 42.27%, and the proposed is 41.7%, which again is a decrease of 0.57 from the existing condition. So although the proposed lot coverage exceed the requirement, it's still an improvement and decreases from that of the existing conditions. Because of the existing narrowness of the garage opening, it's very difficult or close to impossible for a car to fit and be parked within the garage structure. So to expand the garage would also create a hardship upon the applicant, as this would cause them to expand and reconstruct the actual house. So, and in addition, it would also impede onto the side yard setbacks. So because of these site constraints and limitations, relief is requested from the strict application of the land use ordinance.
Okay, and thanks. What about the C2?
Sure. So for C2 as well, this is the flexible context of variances that, if granted, the positive attributes that are shown shall outweigh any detriment, and that that the deviation of the strict application of the zoning ordinance and the benefits will outweigh from the deviation will outweigh any detriment. And overall, the application proposes a better result in terms of zoning alternative. So I'll start with the positive criteria. So per the municipal land use law, there's several purposes of zoning that will be advanced by granting these applications. I'll start with Section A. This is to encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use of development of lands in the state in a manner that will promote public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. So due to the existing topography of the site, the proposed project will provide better drainage for the site, as mentioned by Mr. Bernadette before. Section G, this is to provide sufficient space in appropriate locations for a variety of agricultural, residential, recreational, commercial, and industrial uses and open space, both public and private, according to the respective environmental requirements in order to meet the needs of all New Jersey residents. So the proposed drainage infrastructure will allow for effective management of runoff, and further, the new turf will, at the rear yard of the property, will be at grade, providing more usable space for the applicant. Section J, to prevent urban sprawl and degradation of the environment through improper use of land. Again, this is an undersized lot, and given its dimensions, it's an efficient use of the site. Section I, this is to promote a desirable visual environment through creative development techniques and good civic design and arrangement. So the proposed project will create an aesthetically pleasing environment surrounding the dwelling, especially in the rear yard, and therefore it's good civic design. And lastly, Section M, this is to encourage the coordination of various public and private procedures and activities shaping land development with a view of lessening the cost of such development and to the more efficient use of land. So if the reconstructing the garage were to happen for the garage and the dwelling, that would be a significant cost burden on the applicant, and that would be the only reason why they would be expanding would to fit a vehicle within the garage.
So I'm just going to stop you for 1 second. So just to clarify, what you're saying is that if the garage variance weren't granted, the applicant would have to reconstruct the garage. That's the only way to come into compliance.
That's right, yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead. So
Yes.
the negative criteria, I think.
I will move on to the negative criteria now, and that there will be no substantial detriment to the public good with this application. So this project is a benefit to the public as it will provide better drainage and runoff onto adjacent properties from the existing undesirable conditions. And the applicant, if the applicant were compliant with the lot coverage requirement, this would be cause for a decrease in parking spaces provided within the driveway. And then the only way to make the driveway smaller would be and for this to take place would be, the only way to be compliant with this would be to make the driveway smaller, and this would create a prolonged disturbance to the neighbors along this side of the street. So as I mentioned earlier, there's no basement or attic within this dwelling. So as a result, the garage is used for multiple purposes, including storage space and laundry facilities. So because this garage is used for multiple functions, there's not enough space to fit a vehicle. And in order to fit a vehicle with the garage, as I just mentioned, would be to reconstruct the garage and widen it. So this, as I mentioned, this would be a major cost burden for the property owner. And currently, with the driveway that the property owner has, there's no issues fitting all the vehicles they need safely within that driveway, and there's no need to fit a vehicle within and to park it within the garage. So, in summary of the negative criteria, there would be no substantial detriment to the intent and the purpose of the zone plan or the zoning ordinance. I will mention that within the 1997 master plan that I reviewed, it mentions the S60 zone. And regarding single-family residential land uses, and I'll quote what's mentioned, a single-lot, single-family residential land uses are known on the zoning map as S60 zone. This zone has a minimum lot size of 7,500 square feet. Most of the lands located in this zone are in the northern portion of the township, although there is a S60 zoning in the Irving Street neighborhood west of Mountain Avenue and the area between Mountain Avenue and Mazel Avenue south of Shumpike Road. This master plan includes no provisions to extend the limits of the small lot zoning district, and this is within the land use plan on page 24. So to that end, there was no changes proposed to amend the S60 zone, and there was no recommendations to accommodate smaller lots less than 7,500 square feet within the S60 zone.
That was the 1997 plan, correct?
That's right.
Have there been any comments to that effect in any more recent master plans?
I did not see any in the 2005 reexamination report or the 2017 reexamination report.
Thank you. So just to sum up, what is your professional opinion as a planner as to these variances?
So, in summary, as I mentioned, there would be no substantial detriment to the public good. The proposed stormwater management and drainage of the site would be improved, as it will prevent the existing conditions of runoff onto adjacent properties, and to that end, the proposed infrastructural improvements are beneficial to not only the site, but the neighborhood as well. With the existing uneven topography in the rear yard, the turf replacement will level the rear yard and add functionality and usability to it. And the proposed impervious coverage is actually a decrease from the existing condition and will be an improvement to the site. And then lastly, the garage is currently utilized for several functions, as I mentioned, for laundry facilities, for storage. And because of this, a vehicle cannot safely fit within the garage, but all the applicant's vehicles fit within the driveway with no issue. And that pretty much concludes my testimony. I'll take any questions at this time.
Was the property purchased in the present configuration?
That is my understanding, but if you don't mind, I'm just going to double check with the applicants. That's correct? That is correct. It was purchased in this current configuration.
I just want to make sure, the garage variance that being sought is making no changes, physical changes to anything about the garage, the footprint, the door, nothing, correct?
There's no changes to the garage.
So the garage variance is just to use the garage. Help me understand really the garage variance. I'm listening.
Sure. So essentially, this is basically an existing non-conforming condition. However, Mr. Disco requested, believed that we needed this variance, and of course, we're happy to get it. We don't think there are any issues with the garage. And again, reconstructing the house would be such a burden on the applicant that's.
No, I understand what the variance application about the garage is not, right? But like, what is really being requested as to the garage variance? Like, it's not being used as a garage. We understand why. But there's, okay, so what's being requested?
Do you want me to go? I could answer this.
I think this is a legal question.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
The request is just for a garage in the S60 zone that does not fit a full car as is required under the ordinance. They can't fit a car in their garage, so we need a variance to, allow that.
But what you are is requesting that the existing structure be, in effect, renewed, that you're not planning on doing anything there.
Correct.
Okay, but the lot already doesn't conform on a number of different ways, but you're not asking for variances about all those? Of course not. Help me understand why the garage variance is special compared to the other ones. Do you want me to ask Mr. Disco?
I think maybe ask
I
Mr.
could
Disco.
Shed some light on, and I think most of the board members were members last year, 2022, when we had this applicant come before this board seeking lot coverage driveway expansion in the front yard because they couldn't park in the front yard and they had a need to expand it, which is counter to the planner's statement. At that time, there was discussion about, and testimony provided by neighbors and others, that there was a garage, the applicant had moved in and removed the garage. I was tasked at that time with determining whether a car could fit, or their car could fit in the garage, and indeed it cannot. This was a picture from It was dated 5/17/2022, which was part of that application. And so it does show the laundry facilities for sure.
Mike, can we mark that as A5?
Sure.
Yeah, I also, do you mind if I take a look at that, Mr. Bergen?
Yeah. What do you want to mark it?
E5.
I think,
Or
B1, I mean, or B5.
Ward 1? Yeah.
So Mike, my question is it the reason why it cannot fit a car, is it because of this use, the alternate use of the garage, that it does not allow a car to fit in there, or
Yeah,
that if that
the
garage
picture
is
shows washer dryer in the garage
Right.
and other storage.
So if that was solely, none of that stuff was there, would a car fit in that garage?
Well, here's the question, which I would like to ask to clarify. So, did you discuss with the applicant when the laundry facilities were installed?
I did not know.
Okay. Did you discuss with the applicant when the garage door was changed?
No, I did not, but like I said, I did 2 site visits of this year, so I can only say from conditions that I saw and witnessed when I went to the site 2 times, like I said, on September 1st and 12th of this year. So there's nothing I can say about those conditions. I can only say about conditions that I witnessed myself.
Did you witness a mechanism for the garage door to open?
I did not see the garage door open myself, no.
Okay. The garage door was changed in the last year, or since the applicant appeared before the board. Previous garage door had, I'll call them window panes at the top. They no longer exist. There's a new, I'll call it exterior material. There's no handle for a garage door. The picture clearly shows laundry and washing facilities. We consulted with the building department. There are no permits for those laundry facilities. They would require a permit per discussion with Maggie Keffer of the building department. You've got water, electrical. The venting pipes that are in the garage look rather new, quite frankly. We have MLS data from 2001 through 2020 that shows one-car garage on each of those.
I'm sorry, I have to, can I talk to you for a second, Mr. Bergen? I'll just say, okay, none of this was provided to me by Mr. Disco in his review. All he said was that he believed there was not a garage here. The applicants said they made no changes, and this is the first I'm hearing of any no permits or, I'm just a little confused because Mr. Disco had months to tell us that this was the case, and I am not aware of it.
Okay. It's on the record.
Yeah, I just felt I had to make that clear on the record.
Yeah, and I'll
But I'm-
regurgitate, this came up in 2022. So again, Ms. Naparano is not on the board, but I think most people were.
But I don't remember all these details about the garage. I remember it was just loosely talked about that the garage was removed, and I didn't understand how that could be possible because it's part of the building. But it didn't matter for the purposes of that application because it was undisputed that they couldn't use it for a car. I mean, the measurements were there at the time. I'll never forget that application for other reasons that
Yes.
those of us who are on the board should never forget. But those details that you just mentioned, I don't remember any of them in terms of permits, in terms of hookups, in terms of venting. So,
And
thank you very much.
just for the record, we're not disputing that a car can't fit in the garage. The applicants confirmed for me that even if none of that was in there, a car could not fit in the garage.
And I'm hoping you're going to have them testify, just to bring that out.
Yeah, I can put them on the record if that's what you would like.
But now just going back to how we started, though.
Sure.
So the garage variance is for it to no longer be a garage? Am I saying that correctly?
Basically, yes. The ordinance requires one garage space. Effectively, because a car cannot fit, there are 0 garage spaces. And, again, the applicants, my understanding, go ahead.
You need this because of the fact that the garage is being used for something other than a garage. And that's why you need this.
We would need it even if there was nothing in the garage because a car cannot fit in the garage. And there is one that's required under the code.
understand that.
Our ordinance requires, as Mr. Weiss said, one space in a garage for this zone. That doesn't exist. There's no capable parking in the garage, that's clear. The point is, when 2022 came up, we were tasked, we went out the day of the hearing to verify that a car couldn't fit. Question which didn't materialize because he was denied the excess parking on the, what was the grass area or whatever, was how did we get to the point where the garage disappeared?
I think garage disappeared as kind of an odd characterization of,
The garage parking disappeared.
Well, the garage is there, it's just
Right.
not being used as a traditional garage, which I don't think you would need a variance for, but tell me if I'm crazy about, like, am I wrong?
You need a variance if you can't park a car in the garage.
But they already couldn't park the car in the garage, they're not making a change to the garage.
Well, the
I know
point
they did.
is,
I'm
when they
listening.
purchased the home, it was a one-car garage.
If I might, it's only a pre-existing non-conforming condition if at the time it's created, it's legal. It needed a variance at the time it was created. It wasn't, to my understanding, obtained at that time. So they're seeking that variance now for the work that was previously.
that is my belief as well. Thanks, Mr. Bergen. Yeah.
Okay, so the list of that work, aside from what Mr. Disco read off, is there anything else that you guys want to provide us as to that?
Well, again, I just am, I wasn't provided with any of this. If there are permits they need, that they don't have, certainly we can look into that. But I think, number one, the 2022 application is a different application for a different reason. I don't think that's relevant to this one. And second of all, again, as I said, happy to look into whatever, that is a very annoying feedback. Happy to look into whatever permits they might need, but Mr. Disco's report from earlier this year did not mention any of these specific permits, so I'm just kind of confused.
And we appreciate that you're at a little bit of a disadvantage.
Thank you.
You weren't here last year either.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's fair to say that they were unaware of the garage issue. That's why we're requesting the variance. But the point is, from 2001 through the 2020, we looked at the MLS listings. One car attached garage is shown on all of them. Miraculously, in 2022, there's no garage. There's also laundry facilities that were not permitted. The building department, since Cortez, Leonella T., and Gutierrez Melvin took possession after U.S. Bank Trust, the only permit was for AC floor drain and condenser.
All right, but the property was built in 1979, the building.
I can't tell you the date of the building, but I can look it up on the MLS if you give me a...
Well, I don't always trust the MLS.
Okay.
So, but according to the tax records, it says 1979, year built 1979.
Yeah, I see 78. Yep.
Okay, so it's an attached garage, like inside, it's not like external to the building, it's inside the building.
Right.
So that garage has been there.
Yeah.
It's the same, theoretically, it's the same garage. I don't know why someone would shorten the garage. And the MLS will, of course, market it as a garage, even though it may not be very useful as a garage.
No question about it. I
right?
don't... yes.
So if I'm going to ask you one more time.
Please.
The garage variance that you're seeking is not to remove the garage, because you're not removing the garage. It's
Right.
not to make any physical changes to the garage. It's just say you have one that it's non-conforming, even though there are other characteristics of the property that are the same thing that you're not seeking a variance for.
Right, so I think Mr. Bergen hit the nail on the head. What the issue is the lot, the subdivision or whatever, however this lot came to be, it came to be such that the lot width was too small and the lot size was too small. Those are existing non-conforming conditions because presumably they were approved by the township, otherwise it wouldn't have happened. Nobody just, right. But the garage, if the garage couldn't fit a car when the garage was built, or the house was built rather, then that should have gotten a variance, and it never did. So we need one now because it can't be considered just existing non-conforming because really it's something that was never properly permitted, and so the applicants now need it even 45 years later.
Thank you both, thank you.
Yeah. And just one other thing, sorry. am a little, and just if Mr. Disco can clarify this for me, that'd be great. I think what I'm hearing is that they reconstructed the garage, which I don't really know how they would have done that without it being pretty open and notorious, so I'm a little,
I don't think that's what he said. I think there's a lot of changes that were made inside the garage in terms of water hookups, for example, electricity, in terms of the venting. That's not part of this application.
correct,
And those are still issues that will remain
outstanding. Yeah.
whether this application is granted or not. Tell me if I'm wrong.
I would also just ask the planner one last question. How many bedrooms are in the house?
From my research, I believe there's 3.
Thank you.
So, as I said, yes, to your point, any permits that they need for anything that was installed in the garage, we will certainly work with the township on that, but you said it, they're not relevant to this application.
Well, in a way, I think
It is relevant, but we'll cross that bridge.
I think they are relevant because of the fact that it's not able to be used as a garage is being used for something else. And that something else has been added during that period of time. Because it was deemed back then that the garage was not able to fit a car at that point in time. And it wasn't because of the fact that there was a washer and dryer there.
No. So sorry, Chairman, I see 2 issues here, if you don't mind. One is that the garage can't fit a car. No matter if nothing was in there, the garage would not be able to fit a car.
Correct.
The other is there's a bunch of stuff in the garage that maybe isn't properly permitted. So the variance right now is just, in my mind, for the fact that the garage cannot fit a car. If the garage was empty, we would still need this variance because, again, as Mr. Bergen said, this should have been permitted 45 years ago when the house was built, and it never was. So we need that variance no matter what's in the garage. There is a separate issue as to whether they have the proper permits for the washer and dryer, electrical, whatever, venting that's in the garage. And again, happy to look into that. We will work with the township to make sure all the proper permits are acquired. But I see this, what we're asking for right now is just for the board to give, hopefully, a thumbs up to the variance such that they don't need to make the garage bigger to fit a car, no matter what's in there.
And I'll just say, here's what I wrote on 7/17/2023, which was item number 7. The 2022 application confirmed that a vehicle cannot fit in the garage, comma. I don't think there's any disputing that by anybody. Violating ordinance 35-23.2A, which is what we're seeking today. Review of the building department records, remember, this is July, shows no permits for drive/garage conversion. Assessor's records and MLS past report shows one-car garage. Totally consistent with what I'm saying tonight. Home sold 2020. Request variance for garage conversion, hence we're here requesting it. An interior inspection is recommended. Reval inspectors were not granted interior access, and then the windows have now been removed from what was the garage door, which now has no handle on it and no visible means to look into it. So I don't think it's a surprise. I pointed these out in July. I didn't get into the house. If the board's comfortable with the loss of the garage parking vis-a-vis the denial of the parking last time, then grant the variance.
So I think Mr. Disco is referring to, and for the record, the clients dispute that they did not allow anyone into the garage, but there was an attempt to review the interior of the garage before the 2022 application, which again was denied, is not before the board. I'm not aware, and Mr. Disco can correct me if I'm wrong of this, but I'm not aware of any attempt to view the interior of the garage before this application. We were aware of everything in that report from July, and we're here seeking the garage variance. So I think we're doing what we were asked to do. If no one from the town came to inspect the garage, then I don't really know why Mr. Disco is referring to an inspection that was supposed to happen before an unrelated application.
I would have been happy to look at it. The point is, I think we're clear as to what relief you need, so it's up to you guys.
I have a question. If we were to say that it's okay not to have the garage, does that allow them to now take the rest of the garage and make it into another room once that variance? Is there any kind of condition that we could say you can't make it into a family room or a bedroom or something like that, once it's not there?
I don't think they're asking to remove the garage. I think they're asking to accept the garage as not used as an additional garage because of sizing,
I
right?
understand that, but if we were to grant that, does now that allow them to come in and say, well, we have permission not to use this as a garage, now we want to use it as a ping pong room or something else, or another family room, or another bedroom or something? I don't know, how does that work? I don't know.
Does that impact anything, though?
I understand what you're trying to protect against, but, I mean, if it's not being used as a garage and they get the relief that there's not parking of car in the garage, then it can be utilized for additional storage as it is. The laundry.
Bedroom?
Well, yeah, sure, as long as it is sent to the building department for proper plan review and then inspections. So you know,
Which this board has done before. I mean, not for a one-car garage, to my knowledge at least, but we've done things like that.
So-
They've come before the board.
Sorry, I cut you off, I apologize. To your concern, if the board would like a condition regarding not turning the garage into a bedroom or a family room or anything else, the applicant is happy to agree to that. Yeah, it'll be, you know, it won't be used for anything other than the storage that it's currently used for, and we will deal with the storage issues separately, of course, but
I think the definition would be, it wouldn't be habitable space.
habitable, perfect, thank you that's a good use of word, yeah.
And I think, Mr. Planner, you mentioned this before, there's no cellar, there's no basement. Just to be clear, the property's built on a slab?
I believe that's correct.
Thank you.
I have a question, and this may be for the engineer, but you might be able to answer it. For the edge of the driveway where there's synthetic turf, do you require a curb? Is there a curb required between the driveway and the synthetic?
Just take the hand mic.
No, there's no curb requirement.
One of my concerns is that if we were to approve this, there would be a condition that there would be no parking on anywhere but the driveway. I just want to go on record saying you can't all of a sudden have synthetic turf and park on it because it's not grass anymore.
No problem. Yeah, I think, as we said, they fit all their cars in the driveway as is, so I don't think that would be a problem.
I do have a question on that statement.
Sure.
Both made. They were in front of us telling us they needed relief to put more parking in. What changed between May and now?
Well, again, that's a separate application. I can't,
I'm going off the statements you're making now. You both said they don't have any issues with parking anymore.
that's all I can say to you is that currently they do not have any issues with parking. You know, obviously if that were, and I'm not saying it's going to change or that they intend for it to change, if that were to change, they would have to come back to the board. But, you know, anything that happened last year, I can't comment on, but all I can tell you is that they do not have any issues with parking on the driveway as is.
Okay, so your statement of no parking on the turf would not...
Yes, that's fine.
Just to be clear, on both sides of the property, based on the survey, it's 8.5 feet on one side and almost a little over 7.25 on the other side, feet, for between the boundary line and the building?
Correct, for the
Thank you.
side yard setbacks.
Thank you.
and I would just add, I take no exception to any of the planning comments with regard to the lot coverage. There's a slight reduction in lot coverage. There's going to be less drainage to the street, and certainly there's going to be provision for storage on site. So those are all beneficial in terms of the lot coverage issue.
With regard to the turf maintenance and such, that they're making the decision, any concern with any of that? Sorry, any concern with the turf maintenance?
No, there is no concern with the turf maintenance. It's actually going to reduce maintenance requirements on it. If anything, there occasionally will be weeds that will grow out in the areas that will just have to be pulled, but that's about it. Less mowing, all that.
Any other questions? No questions from the board? Mike, you good? Any questions from the public? Anybody on the public like to speak? Please step forward. All right, I see no questions from the public. Are you done?
Yes, I have just some brief closing remarks to wrap everything up for you, and then we're all set. So, as you heard from both witnesses, the variances are appropriate here, and as you heard from Mr. Martini, they're appropriate under the C1 and the C2 context. Regarding the lot coverage variance, the lot is around half of the minimum size allowed in the S60 zone. That's an existing non-conforming condition and a hardship, as Mr. Martini testified to. Similarly, the frontage is only about 2/3 of the minimum width allowed in the zone. Due to the size of the lot, the maximum lot coverage really would be, as Mr. Martini testified to, only about 1,400 square feet with regards to a property of this size in the zone. However, the lot's not overburdened or overdeveloped. There's only a home and a driveway on the lot. The applicant is as close to compliant as it can be, given the existing conditions, and is in fact reducing the lot coverage, as you heard. There are a lot of arguments in favor of the positive criteria under the C2 context here. The turf, the dry well, the PVC piping, and the new retaining wall will significantly improve stormwater drainage, while again, actually reducing the lot coverage. It's an efficient use of the site, and the rear yard will now be at grade and more aesthetically pleasing. And regarding the negative criteria, there is no substantial detriment. There's a public benefit due to improvement on drainage, and compliance with the lot coverage would require reduction of the driveway, which would then either require reconstruction of the garage to fit cars or, run into concerns that the board was speaking about before regarding parking. You also heard from Mr. Martini regarding the garage variance in the C1 and C2 context. Due to the hardships, again, of lot width and size, the garage is also small because it's a fairly small house. To expand the garage would require reconstruction of the home and actually would worsen the existing non-conforming side yard, as well as likely create a new variance with respect to the 15-foot both side yards requirement. And this reconstruction would be costly and time-consuming and cause a lot of disturbance to the neighbors. There are no issues parking the driveway as is. The land is used efficiently, and this plan would not be costly. There is no substantial detriment to the zone plan. Reconstruction of the garage would be, again, costly and cause disturbance to the neighborhood. But again, the driveway works fine as is. The applicants are great neighbors and residents of Springfield. They want to build and grow their family in this town, and these variances will allow them to do that. So we would ask that the board grant both the lot coverage and garage variances. Thanks.
Any comments from the public? As I see none. Close it for a vote. Okay.
I just want to add a couple of things that if we were to vote on this, I think there's a condition that they would maybe resubmit a site plan with the 1-foot retaining wall set in. The engineer said the retaining wall will be 1 foot in from the property line. That's not what his site plan is now.
I had 3 conditions before your interior conditions. One was that there would be no weep holes. I think the applicant agreed to that.
Say it again, Mike.
No weep holes in the wall design. That way, there's no concentration of drainage to a neighbor. That there would be an overflow mechanism on the roof drain downspout, and that I had that offset on the wall off the property line to accommodate. I don't know who brought it up with the detail shows manipulation of the soil in front of the wall, so you need an offset. Whether that's 1 foot, 2 foot, the board can set that. I think the applicant would probably be comfortable with either of those choices.
Sure. Yes.
Give me the wording on that again.
No weep holes in the wall design, overflow mechanism at the roof drain downspout, and then a setback of the retaining wall to the rear and side property lines. And I think you could fill in the blank of 1 foot or 2 foot to accommodate the soil manipulation in front of the wall.
And then we also had that there would be no parking except on the driveway.
Yep, got
And that the garage would not be used as habitable space.
Hold on, when you say no parking on the driveway, are you talking about,
No parking except on the
Except-
driveway.
so you're talking about not even on the grass, not the turf?
No, only on the pavement. Isn't that an ordinance in town that you can't park on the grass?
I don't think it's needed.
It is, yeah.
Or synthetic turf, however.
With those conditions stated. We have
Five conditions.
Okay.
I would request a condition, and that is that everything that's in the garage that needs to be permitted, that should have been permitted, and not just limited to what Mr. Disco listed earlier, from water to electrical to the venting, that all has to be properly permitted, or they have to come back if they can't get a permit for it and seek a variance for it.
I would like to add to previous comments that there be a time limit on the period of time to remove this, because I just see a continuing issue. And
I'm sorry, remove what?
that there be a time limit for the removal of the items that Mr. Zader.
I think if we're going to seek permits for them,
Fine, then do it within blank number.
okay, I just wanted to clarify, no problem, yeah.
Garage door too, I don't go down, whatever needed,
Whatever permits we need, but if the board wants to set a time limit for doing that, that's fine.
This did come up,
Mike, what's a reasonable time frame for,
this did come up before.
60, 90 days is ample time to file for a permit.
I'll do 90 days.
Yeah.
That's okay with you, council?
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve application 2023-18, Melton and Leonella Trinidad?
I'll
For-
move. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, with the 6 conditions set forth.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Mr. Sahada?
Yes.
Mr. Hochstein?
Yes.
Mr. Furstenbaum?
Yes.
Mr. Weckstein?
Yes.
Ms. Naparano? Yes. And Chair Cunningham?
Yeah,
Motion passes.
Thank you.
we're going to take a 5-minute break.
It's always all about me. You're living in my world here. Well, I had it off, but then I got silly.
yeah?